So Nick Rayburn's a really interesting character. I first came across him on Clubhouse, where I heard him speak, and I've also been connected with him on LinkedIn for some time. And he's a video expert, a content expert. He's a funny guy. He puts a lot of humor into the work he does, but he's also got really, really serious on the LinkedIn platform at various points and has opened up to a level that I've really not seen anybody else ever open up to. It's been incredible how he's stripped it all back. Over the last couple of years, he's built a really strong audience, managed to uncover, quite a lot of business opportunities and personal opportunities. He does a lot of work with charity in his spare time to try and pay it forward. He's a really interesting guy that can help think about social selling, personal branding, and leveraging LinkedIn and content to get the real you out there to create more opportunities. So without further ado, let's see what he's got to say in this week's Executive Career Jump podcast. We're here with Nick Rayburn. Let's get to work.
You're listening to the Career Jump podcast. Insights, interviews, and success stories to inspire and give you the edge when you make your next career jump. Hosted by your career concierge, Andrew MacAskill.
Hello, welcome back to the Executive Career Jump podcast. I'm your host and your career concierge, Andrew MacAskill. Very excited today to be joined by Nick Rayburn. How are you doing, Nick?
I'm good, buddy. Yeah, and it's a pleasure to have me on and finally actually speak to you as well. So,
no, likewise. So I've been following Nick for a while on various platforms and really enjoy his content. So really grateful for him coming to share his story today. Just for those who haven't come across your work previously, tell us a little bit more about your work and the types of things you get involved with.
I'm a social selling and video coach. I'm partnered with a couple of companies. So Viral Media is my company. I'm also partnered with another company called Crux, and a big shout out to Eric if you're listening and watching. Hello, Eric.
Hey, Eric.
And they're part of a larger company called DLA. So I want to give a little shout out to Adam and Tim from DLA as well.
What's up, Tim? And what do we do with those companies, Nick? How do you help people?
So we basically take the C-suite, we take HR, we take marketing, we basically take everyone inside an organization and we turn them into essentially influencers, building out their personal brands and allowing them to social sell. So the traditional model of kind of marketing, driving demand and bringing it to sales to increase revenue, it's everyone's responsibility now across an organization to actually be social selling and driving those conversations that will translate into money.
Absolutely. And people trust the people in organizations more than they do the corporate side anyway, don't they? There's no doubt about that. So good. Love what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit more about how you got here then. So I was interested to see in your background that after you did your, the classic kind of film and media degree route, you spent some time as a mental health nurse or something like that initially when you left uni. So can you just tell us a little bit more about your career journey and how you got to here?
Yes, so I did a film and media studies degree at university, as with most people wanting to get into film ultimately, because I've always had a passion for the moving image and storytelling. Absolutely love it. And like most people transition from university, it's like, it's quite a difficult industry to break into. Don't really know anyone. So obviously it's a case of, there's a lot of nepotism with media and films. It's who you know, not what you know. So I had a kind of hiatus between university, and my mother-in-law was like, well, on my mother's side of, that's a Freudian slip, on my wife's side of the family.
Wow. We won't dig into that one.
No.
Moving on.
On my wife's side of the family, my mother-in-law and my father-in-law and pretty much her entire family all work in mental health. They're all psychiatric nurses. They're all a little bit mad, to be honest. So she was like, oh, well, we've got an opening here for a nursing assistant. Do you want to come and work with me? So I ended up working with my mother-in-law for a few years as a mental health nursing assistant, which was without a doubt probably one of the most eye-opening experiences I've ever had in any job ever, and one of the most rewarding, just beautiful jobs I've ever had, really.
That's so awesome. What did you learn from it, do you think, at that young age?
How to deal with clients, definitely. How to deal with the sort of plethora of kind of different backgrounds of people, and just communicating with people, and realizing as well that some of the people that would come in that were kind of at their most vulnerable and were really unwell were just the most just lovely, beautiful human beings after they've gone through treatment. And a lot of the time it was just down to rest and sleep, really. Like, it's amazing how transformational sleep and rest can be to someone's mental health and well-being. Just, get them in a room, let them sleep for a few days, and they're like a completely different person. Because a lot of people just get strung out and they just fizzle out and burn themselves out, and just not pleasant. Just a really nice environment, and being able to work with people that genuinely care about other people's mental health. It's weird how it's such a kind of hot topic now in the workplace. There's a lot more focus on it. It's like it was something that was really taboo and we didn't talk about now, but it seems to be opening. That conversation seems to be, and especially I think since the advent of COVID, that conversation is starting to open up a bit more, I think, around mental health discussion, which is good.
It's very good. And I think LinkedIn has been a really key platform for that discussion, because I've seen lots of really good encouragement and exposure and collaboration on that topic. Yeah,
it's definitely, without a doubt, of all the social media platforms, I mean, it's the one I'm most focused on. It's just, and we had this discussion before we started, it just feels like a really, and I wouldn't say it's like a safe space, but it's an environment where there's a lot less toxicity, and you feel like you can be a bit more vulnerable with people and a bit more open and honest, and you're not going to get, the just awful pushback that you get from platforms like Facebook and Twitter, which is why I really like it. It's just if you're afraid to post on LinkedIn, you're probably very unlikely going to post anywhere else, because it's a nice place to be on. So
yeah, it's really supportive. But I think people's experiences of those other platforms gets in the way of them experiment with LinkedIn actually quite regularly, which is a shame. I want to come on to what happened after this nursing experience, but you mentioned the importance of sleep and rest. How do you deal with that as someone, running their own operation in the digital world?
I mean, I'm getting better at it, definitely getting better at it, but obviously social doesn't sleep. You may end up having conversations with someone at 10 o'clock at night on social, but I'm getting a bit more rigorous with my time now. Like, one of the things now is I'm banning my device at the dinner table, because I'm so guilty of responding to DMs and stuff while we're eating our evening meal. And it's like, no, that's family time, that's sacred. Switch off the device, put it away. But yeah, rest and sleep, definitely. I mean, I'm lucky in that I've always slept like a baby. I don't know why. I just sleep like a log most of the time. But I've got a 2-year-old son, and he's only recently just started to kind of sleep through the night now. So that was a big one. Like, we had my eldest, she's 10 now, and she kind of lulled us into a full sense of security, because we had her, and she would sleep through the night. So we'd put her down at 7, she'd wake up at 7 in the morning and be like, what's everyone bitching about? This parenting malarkey's a doddle. Like, well, and then we had my son, and he was the complete opposite of her. Just didn't sleep through, up, every couple of hours, and so sleep was kind of a premium, I think. It was,
yeah, tale of two children, as they say. Tends to be that way. But I think you made some really good points there. I love this idea of having boundaries, digital detox boundaries between certain times. I think that's really important. And waking up in the middle of the night with the young one's a good example. Like, if you're picking up your phone at 4 a.m. because your little one's awake, you're putting yourself into a space that you're not going to be able to rest properly anyway. So it still works.
I'm a big fan of I journal regularly. So I journal every day. I practice gratitude. I meditate first thing in the morning, and all these things kind of help. When you're dealing with social, there's so much noise and bombardment. You're having multiple conversations at a time. And obviously you're working as well, that there's so much information being processed, and it's important to learn how to filter that stuff out and just get rid of it at the end of the day. And again, like, we're really lucky, we've got a park opposite our house. You can see the sea from my bedroom window, so we often go down to the seafront. There's woods nearby. I just love being close to nature. In fact, my ideal, I would love to build a house literally in the middle of nowhere next to a wood. Just die happy then, I think.
Yeah, just might need some Wi-Fi fiber at the moment with everything you've got going. Very good. So let's go back to the career story then. Some lovely insights there in terms of getting a bit of balance in the digital world, which is no easy task. So you decide to evolve your career on from nursing, despite taking a lot from it. What was the next thing that you did?
Yeah, so I moved into my first job was working for a company called Fast Forward Productions, and it was producing construction site safety videos, which isn't the sexiest start in the world. But if Guy's watching, I'm going to say hello to Guy, because he is the guy, and his name is Guy, that gave me my start in video. I was applying for loads of jobs at the time, going through job boards. I mean, this is when the internet was still fairly young. So applying for jobs, applying for adverts in newspapers. Do you remember those things?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, yeah.
Old enough to remember those. And I had an interview with him, and I think he could, and this is something that's really important, I think, with the hiring process. He understood that I had kind of very little experience, and I'd been kind of self-taught up to that point. I'd hung out a lot on kind of message boards, because obviously the stuff that you learn at university is pretty heavily out of date by the time you actually come to going into the employment sector. So I absorbed as much knowledge as I could, and I think that's the one thing that university really taught me, was how to self-educate, was how to learn, and gave me the kind of basis for that. So I'd hang out on kind of video boards and learn stuff and ask questions and kind of self-teach myself editing and camera work. And he gave me my first break, and I'll be forever grateful for that, because he kind of saw the enthusiasm and passion in me that, obviously I had no experience, but he saw that there was something there, kind of spark there. So he said, yeah, let's go for it, and gave me my kind of 2-year start, which was, I'm forever grateful for that. So
Absolutely. And we could do with more people kind of thinking a little more laterally, and the amount of entry-level jobs that are requiring 3 years experience that are out there at the moment. It's just silliness.
It actually makes me angry. It makes me angry that there's so many blockers that, you're sitting on people that are just their pure grit, determination and passion for what they do is getting in the way of you haven't ticked that box, you haven't ticked that box. It's like, it really infuriates me, annoys me. I mean,
the weird thing about it, we could go into rant world here, but the weird thing about it is, in my experience, when you actually talk to people and you say, tell me about one of the best hires you ever made, they'll generally tell you about that receptionist that served them one day, or that waiter, or that barman, or that guy at the car wash that they saw something in, who ended up being their ops director, or ended up, like they'll tell you about how they uncovered hidden gems. And then they'll set up a recruitment process that requires a red brick degree, 3 years industry experience.
The complete opposite of that. Yeah.
Right. So I think there's still a lot of educating to go on in terms of how people are assessed and stuff, because everybody's best example is quite often some of those more jagged resumes, or unqualified, particularly people from underprivileged areas that simply haven't had the opportunity to build a CV that would be marketable in that way. Yeah. I love that anecdote. So you mentioned enthusiasm and things like that, but what else do you think you were able to get across to Guy in order for him to take the leap on you at that point?
I'm not sure in terms of the recruitment process. I mean, I kind of demonstrated some stuff. So I think he got me to jump through some hoops. Kind of technically, he was like, can you edit? So he was like, okay, show me your editing skills and stuff like that. And up until that point, like I said, all the stuff that I'd learned, I'd self-taught myself. So I was very fortunate, and there must have been something in that process in terms of my I've always prided myself on my ability to learn quickly and my ability to implement quickly. I've always prided myself on my sense of like speed. So there must have been something there that he noticed, that he was like, yeah, that's cool, this guy's waiting for me. I think it was just probably more my unbridled enthusiasm at that age, which I've still got a little bit of now. I'm getting older, but I'm a bit like a little pocket rocket when I go off. I'm like, if I've got direction, I'm just like, I'm off that way. So he must have noticed something in me that was that. So
I still think you've got that energy. Never lose that, buddy. That was my first impression of you on Clubhouse as well, was real high energy and up and at 'em. I love that. So how long did we stay with Guy, and what happened next?
So I was with Guy a few years, and then left because the travel was killing me. So I'm based in Eastbourne down the south coast, and he's in Portsmouth. So it's a good hour and a half, 2 hour drive there and back every week, and not great for my relationship. So we ended up, and that was with my partner, who's actually my wife now. So we were together at the time. So I left there, went to freelancing, which was interesting, trying to scrabble around, trying to find work. But I think everyone that runs a business, it's good for them to go through that process of freelancing, just to understand, how to get out there and actually get work, because it's bloody hard. It's not easy when you're first starting out. So I tried all sorts of things. I think I set up a company initially doing, this was kind of when estate agents were kind of the height of their thing, kind of doing video tours for properties. So I set up a little company doing that, and that was fairly profitable. It wasn't really kind of ticking my kind of creative box. So I did that for a few years, and then I started working at an events company working in the video department there, and kind of worked my way up through there. And I was with them for a good 7 years. But we were dealing with pharmaceutical clients at the time. So some of the work was creative, but pharma clients have very deep pockets, and but they're no shred of creativity, or they don't need to because they sell drugs. So there's no need for them to sell or kind of pushing things. So they don't need to, because things sell themselves. It wasn't the I learned a lot, I think, in that role, in terms of how to in fact, it was almost the opposite. I've been so conditioned doing that job for that amount of time, and we had this conversation before we started, like, you kind of, it gets imprinted on you, I think, being in the corporate environment, that you need to act this way, and you need to dress this way, and you need to do this, and you need to say these things, that when I came out of it, I was almost kind of rebelling against it. So that's probably where a lot of the kind of social media stuff came from, and kind of trying to build my audience that way. I was just like, I'm kind of sick of being in the corporate environment. I'm going to go completely 180 degrees the opposite direction, which seems to have worked.
Well, it has worked, definitely. And it's evolved as it goes, as we said. Hey, everybody. Sorry to interrupt the podcast, but I wanted to tell you very quickly about how Executive Career Jump can help end your career misery. So when you hit our website, there's 3 different ways that our digital resources can help you. For a start, if you're looking to jump in to a new role, we've got the premier online job search course that you're going to find anywhere. There's a number of different memberships to help you understand what you want and how to go and get it in this current environment. So we're here to help you if you want a new career. We've also got a section if you want to jump up in your career. And so this is all about our online leadership hub, which is a platform full of content, includes 2 meetups per quarter, and a whole thriving community of leaders trying to become the best leaders they can be. Go and check that out too. And the third area in our website, and the other digital course that might help you, is our business launcher course. So we've created the business launcher program that we wish we had when we were setting up on our own. So if you've decided to jump off of the employment stream and start up on your own, make sure you head over and check that out too. You can find all of these resources, a bunch of free content, links to previous podcasts and more at execcareerjump.com. That's EXEC careerjump.com. Now, back to the pod. So when you went it alone the next time, did you go it alone as a freelance, or did you set up your own business in terms of viral media?
Yes.
From day one?
Yeah. So I set up my own business because I wanted to spend more time with my family. I think if I'd have gone back in time to that point, I'd probably gone, no, that's not how it works. You're actually going to be spending less time with your family.
Real talk there, yeah.
And I am so cognizant of my ambition this year was to really kind of grow and scale the business and turn over more revenue. But I'm so cognizant that really trying to balance the amount of work that I put in versus the amount of time I'm spending with my children, because it's kind of this kind of sick universal joke that we spend all this time kind of building a future for our kids and leaving them a legacy, and it's like you're missing the time now. This is the important time, the time they're growing. They're not going to appreciate you in 20 years time when they're old and they've moved on, they've got partners and their own careers and everything else. It's this time now that's important. So trying to balance that is something. It's not just me. I think a lot of people kind of struggle with that.
Yeah, well, parent guilt in general is very real, I think. And the trouble is, you always feel like you're not doing as much as you should be of something, whether that's the business, the children, your own relationship, your extended family, your own health. It's very hard to keep all those plates spinning, isn't it? Are you quite structured? You mentioned some of the kind of, at dinner, we're going to put away the phone, etc. Are you quite structured around how you go about it, or do you tend to just intuitively try and think, am I hitting the right sort of balance?
I think, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about, journaling and meditating. I try and consciously kind of check myself a lot during the day. It's like, does this feel right? Or am I getting overwhelmed at this point? Then that's usually a sign for me to go, okay, stop, think, check yourself. What are you doing right now? And is this the right direction you're going in? That's difficult to do, I think, with some people, to have that insight to go, just pause for a second and just breathe, stop, check yourself. And is this the right thing? Is what you're about to do now, is this the right thing? A lot of the time I am going on impulse, but I try and be, I think having a certain amount of structure, I think, to your day is important. So yeah, things like, for example, like I was saying, kind of journaling, meditating, and then having kind of structure to my day and what I'm doing, my content, lead gen, all that stuff helps. Otherwise it would just be chaos, I think.
No, yeah, and that's my experience too. I'm literally kind of coming around to the idea that routine is empowering rather than restricting. Like, I think if you get it right, it actually empowers you to be. I've always fought against it. I'm like anti-process, anti-routine, fly by your seat of your pants, like classic kind of.
It's a balance, isn't it? Because I think that's what happens with a lot of larger corporations. They get so structured. There's so much structure to it. They don't allow any room for the bleeding of kind of creativity or sort of, lateral thinking, because it's like, well, this is the machine and the machine works this way, and there's no way for anything else to sort of come into it.
Exactly. Becomes constraining it. So Real Media then, since you've set that up, what rough percentage of your customers and partnerships and clients have come via LinkedIn for that organization?
So when I started, we were basically like a white label agency for other agencies. So we'd go in and larger agencies that didn't have video capabilities, we'd step up and go, yeah, well, we can create video for you. So for me, when I started out, a lot of that was kind of trudging around, introduce myself to all the other agencies, going, hello, we're here. Can you, we can do work for you. And then I kind of stumbled onto LinkedIn a few years ago. And that was a revelation. It was just like, I was looking at what people were doing, and I was like, this is weird. Like people that seem to be getting engagement, and a lot of the content they're putting out that's getting quite high engagement isn't related to what they do. And it's like, and then I get obsessed with kind of reverse engineering things and picking things. There must be an engineering aspect of my brain maybe, but I started to kind of dig into it and notice what people were doing and start to implement and test stuff. And I was like, this is flipping amazing. And then obviously that started to bring in more lead. But then the thing I struggled with is that a video agency, we didn't have a definable product. So it was always like, well, what do you need? And then we'd have to kind of tailor something. So I find it very difficult, and it might just be my experience, but I find it very difficult to sell something when you don't have a defined product offering. Kind of set price, and this is what it is, this is what we do, and this is only what we do, and we do it for a cross section of different industries. So I kind of struggled initially. It was like, well, what is it you want, or what is it you need? And I wasn't being kind of prescriptive with my sort of sales methodology. So I kind of stumbled, and sales, and it still is kind of new to me. I've never really had any kind of formal sales training. So again, I was kind of figuring it out as I kind of went along, really. I think a lot of people do, probably in sales anyway. And then I kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of rebrand, focus on my personal brand, kind of build that out, grow my audience, go down the video kind of training route. And that's what happened with COVID. COVID hit, and I was like, well, we can't go out and film anymore. So what do I do now? So I was like, well, I need to build another revenue stream to the business. So I created the video coaching side of stuff, and then that evolved into the social selling side. So it's weird how, like there's no way you could have plotted the trajectory of my career from the start and gone, yeah, you're going to end up over here. It just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, join the dots backwards, as they say. Join the dots backwards. It's very much that, isn't it? Again, we were talking about that before we started recording. I think it's interesting how it evolves. And I think if you're consistent, not inconsistent, and you lean into, what you are on a regular basis, that opportunities will come out of the woodwork. So what are your kind of key advice points or tips to others who've taken the leap and are starting to try and build out a personal brand to feed themselves as a freelancer or as a startup?
This sounds really new agey and very hippified of me, and this is a very difficult concept for people to grasp, but that is know thyself. Know who you are deep down in your core and really lean on that, because the biggest USP you have as your personal brand is you. So the more you can be, the better off you're going to do in the long run. But a lot of people struggle with that. And I still get it, like, the whole imposter syndrome thing. And it's like, am I good enough? Do people want to listen to what I have to say? And you end up kind of going, well, I'm going to sort of create this persona of what I think I should be, or what I think people see in me, rather than going, okay, let's strip away that veneer of what people think I am, and kind of get inside to hear it's to who you actually are, and put that out there. And it's objectively a really scary exercise for a lot of people to do. It's terrifying for a lot of people to do. Even the clients that we train and coach, it's, we really have to hold their hand at the start and kind of walk them through these little baby steps of kind of getting to that place where they're comfortable to talk about themselves from a personal level. Because people think that, that there's this the corporate version of you and the personal version of you, and they're actually one and the same person. When that happens, when you marry these two components of yourself, that's when the magic happens.
Absolutely. Combine what you're about with what you do, and then you're in there.
Yeah.
And so what is it that people are scared of in your experience? What do you think is holding people back?
I think there's a large component of, like I said before, of not knowing who they are, or living their life to a degree of like, well, I've always been defined by this, or I've been, someone else has told me, who I am, basically. I'm a big fan of like I said before, kind of storytelling and the whole kind of the hero's myth thing, where the hero kind of starts and they go through the journey and they end up kind of winning the prize at the end. But I do believe that you end up being, and this sounds again really probably kind of Zen and New Age, but I think you end up being born twice. You're born, and your parents kind of give you this stamp of who you are in the world, and then after that you discover who you are and you form your own identity, and it's at that point you actually start to live your life, I think.
Love it. Yeah, the day you're born and the day you realize why, I think, is the classic
one,
quote.
Yeah.
I think it was Lincoln or something, but I love that. I absolutely love that, because that leans into the journey element about it. Now, there's a lot of debate around the right mix of personal content versus professional content on the platform. As we discussed, You've been more open than 99.999% of my connections on the personal side at times, which I think is really admirable. But what do you think is the right sort of mix? Is there a right sort of mix? Or are we overthinking it to think there is any differentiation between the two?
No, I think you do need a mix. Otherwise, you just become that weird person that's like, here's pictures of my kids every week. It's like, well, what is it you actually do? Like,
yeah.
So for me, my content mix is I call it my kind of semi-serious content is my newsletter that I put out every week. So that's the bit where I get to kind of put my business hat on and say, like, this is the proper grown-up stuff, but I'll still do it in a kind of tongue-in-cheek, playful way that suits my personal brand. I don't think you can ever, if you kind of, personally, I think if you're kind of doing it right, you should never kind of lean too far away from your personal brand. Otherwise it becomes confusing for your audience. I'd say a kind of, maybe kind of a 60-40 split, I think, between kind of personal content and business content. I think is a good mix. So we do the 4-1-1, which is 4 pieces of kind of business content and then 1 piece of personal content. I can't remember what the other one is now. It's going to make me look like a dick. No, I can't remember off the top of my head what the 4-1-1 is now.
Is it a call to action?
Might be, yeah.
Like maybe that's like the hook post, like where you actually then make an offer of some type.
Ask, yeah.
And ask,
I mean, we have a kind of mantra in social selling that we don't sell to our audience, we sell through our audience. So we don't ever directly kind of go, here's my thing, buy my thing. A lot of that is done through the DMs and actually on proper sales calls. So we don't, unless it's kind of a low ticket item, you're not actually going to go, here's my thing, like buy my thing on social, because it's very rare unless you're a massive influencer with 500,000 followers. It's very unlikely you're going to push much of that product and people are going to buy it if it's a low ticket item. So we're all about kind of network growth and allowing ourselves to be positioned as the expert in that space to allow our audience to go, well, you need to speak to Nick about video or social selling. So your audience goes, speak to him, rather than you going, check me out, I'm great at this. Your audience does the pointing for you and does the selling for you. And that's the magic of social selling. When you get it right, is that you've got a defined audience that go, well, they're the expert in this, they're the person you need to speak to.
You're the one who's front of mind. Yeah, that's much better than peacocking and trying to force people down funnels and all of that kind of thing. I love this idea of through your audience rather than to your audience, because that leans towards community building, which I think is at the essence of great social selling as well. Yeah. Lovely stuff. Just swinging back to video then, what does good video look like for somebody that's trying to create something?
It sounds cliched, but it's good storytelling. If you've got a story that kind of wraps your audience up in it. And I'm a big believer as well that there's I know there's kind of a push more to, especially with platforms like TikTok, towards kind of more short form content. But I am of the opinion, if you're good at it, if you can hook your audience and tell them a story and kind of pull them along on that journey, I hear all this nonsense about, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and blah, blah, blah. And that might apply specifically to social, but we still watch movies, we still read books. our attention spans aren't getting shorter. It's just that there's more noise, the noise is more prevalent. So I'm of the opinion, if you can hook someone in and you can hold their attention for a long period of time, it's better than doing that over a kind of a short period of time. So I've found that kind of around kind of testing wise, around the kind of 1.5 minute mark seems to work quite well in terms of length on LinkedIn for video content. But yeah, and this is another one as well, is humor. I lean really heavily on humor on the platform because it is a corporate platform. The more left field you go and the more away from corporate you go, the better off you seem to do, because it just, from a marketing perspective, it just stands out more. That's kind of my raison d'etre, is just be a clown, really. So.
Stand out. I posted on digital clowns last week. So this is the debate I get into sometimes. So I haven't lent the humour way particularly, but
yeah,
it's important also, I think, that if you are someone that is humorous, that you do it. I don't think you should try and be funny if you're not. It's basically what I'm saying.
Take what you're, take an aspect, and that's what I think personal brand is. You're taking aspects of your personality and you're essentially amplifying them. So I'm a bit goofy in real life and quite tongue-in-cheek, and I don't take myself too seriously. So that's kind of what I do on social. I think if you're, and this goes back to being authentic and I hate these words, authentic and vulnerable, but if you're taking those aspects of yourself and you're amplifying them, you're going to do much better than you are sort of putting a kind of false positive of what people expect you to be or look like on social. So and again, I get that's for a lot of people that it's hard and a kind of terrifying prospect to sort of go there, but
open up.
There's a really famous line in a novel that I love, June, and it's called The Litany of Fear, and it's the whole, I can't remember the whole line, but I think it's something like I must not fear is the mind killer, and it goes into this big kind of basically saying, like, you need to kind of face your fear and kind of go through your fear and you'll come out the other side. So what I tend to do is it seems to be a kind of barometer for me. If I know something's scary, it's my subconscious going, well, you need to do this, you need to address this and actually face it head on and do it. So for me, that's like, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is scary now, I'm going to go after that, which is like the complete opposite to most people's kind of survival instincts. It's like, I'm going to back away from this thing, it's scary, and don't do it. That's just me. Maybe
that's such an awesome point. Yeah, that is where creativity happens. Exactly. It's your classic game. You end up with all these cliches, but it's outside of the comfort zone is where the progress happens. So
yeah.
I love the fact you've managed to reframe that as an indicator you should do it rather than you shouldn't do it.
It's like this little kind of like red flag thing. Your subconscious going, we'll need to look at this and address this, because this is, there's something there, if it's kind of sort of like badgering you and ticking away and kind of tapping you on the shoulder, it's like, well, there's something there, you need to kind of look at,
lean into it a bit.
Yeah,
I love that. Wow, okay, very good. Right, I want to fire just some quick fire ones at you if I can. For the last few minutes. We've covered some really, really good stuff and some insights that I wasn't expecting from different areas as well. So thank you for that. So any books that you particularly rate that have shaped your thinking?
Yeah, definitely. Probably more recently as well. So one that I've listened to, I listen to audiobooks a lot these days rather than books. I've gotten to the point where I don't have time for reading anymore with the kids. So I walk into work, or if I'm doing like I'm out in the car, I'll listen to audiobooks a lot. So a big one for me was Ryan Holiday and Ego is the Enemy. Fantastic book. I've listened to that now 3 times, I think. And he basically just says that, that most people that have kind of made it big, it's not their competitors, it's not changes in market or anything else that's affected them. It's because their ego is completely spiraled out of control, and they've just thought that they're bigger and more important than they are, and it's kind of collapsed in on itself. So yeah, check your ego, basically. Which is
Ego is the Enemy is brilliant. I like all of his stuff. I think he's made kind of stoicism sexy again somehow, Ryan Holiday.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And there's like a whole stoic movement now. Like since I've got into his stuff, and you get under
there is.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of stoicism, and it's it seems to have sort of made a kind of resurgence recently. I think there's so much more, and we talked about this previously as well. There's so much more focus on the kind of inner, your kind of inner journey in terms of, kind of meditation and mental health and just being, whether you realize it or not. I think a lot of business owners is that it all comes from in here. So if you get that bit right, the rest of it should be a doddle, but it all starts with that and, kind of mindset right. And again, it kind of, it's cliche and everything else, but just believing in yourself enough to go out there and do it. And I think all entrepreneurs and all business owners are a little bit mad to begin with. I think
you have to be.
Yeah,
you do. You have to be. No, that's definitely the case.
And then I've got Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, which is the story of how Pixar started as a creative. It fascinates me how they kind of grew that studio. Now Pixar's team have kind of bled into Disney and really influenced the way Disney, they transformed the way Disney does the business in terms of their animation division. There was a line in there that I think where he talks about how, this really resonates with me. They took what they do every month, they do like a retreat thing where they take loads of people from loads of different departments, and then they get them to kind of learn like ballet or sculpture or something like that. So all these people that wouldn't ordinarily talk across these departments are all in a learning environment. And what happens when adults go into a learning environment, they kind of regress to being kids. So they get playful and they sort of start to have fun, and they just open up and become, they just regress to kind of being kids again. And that's a big component of what I do with my coaching. I try and get people just to be goofy and silly, and kind of, because they seem to learn better when they're having fun, because they just, it goes into that kind of student teacher dynamic. So all those people across those different parts of the company all start to interact, all start to have fun with each other, and they get to learn, more about themselves than they would in a normal environment, which is
I love that. Absolutely love that. And what are you excited about for 2022?
I think just the kind of rise of, I'm most excited about, and you've kind of been through this process as well, and again, I don't say it lightly in that how much LinkedIn's kind of changed my life. I've now got a community manager. I'm hopefully working on content with LinkedIn themselves for their training platform as well, which is
nice.
Just blows my mind that, like, if someone had said to me 2 years ago, your business is focused around this social media platform and you'll be putting content out around it, and you'll be actually dealing with people at LinkedIn themselves, I'd have been like, nah, like, what are you talking about? You're bonkers. But it's still, I have to pinch myself that stuff's happening sometimes. It's, I'm not, I'm just a normal dude. I just rocked up one day and was like, well, I'm going to figure out how this thing works. And it's,
but that's the point, isn't it? We were bantering before we start, but you don't have to be a classic influencer type individual to do well on the platform. And I think that's it's democratized social media for normal folk that are up for going and experimenting and trying to add value, right? Which is awesome. Yeah. And that's it's one of the things that we coach, is that if you can take, I think there's a misconception between sort of traditional quote unquote influencers on larger platforms who you're not sure what it is they actually do, compared to, we like to create kind of technical influencers, people that are engineers that speak an engineering language. Speaking to other engineers is beautiful to watch, because they really know their stuff, and they get animated and they geek out about it, but they're talking in that particular person's language. That's the stuff. I know, it's amazing how quickly you can become an authority in a community like that if you get brave enough to put this stuff out there.
Just step up to the plate and go for that first swing. It's scary, but like I said earlier, all the best things are scary. So.
Isn't that true? The obstacle is the way, to quote Mr. Holiday again. So for anyone that's maybe, working in an organization that's looking to go on a bit of a social selling journey, what's the best way for them to reach out to you if they've listened to this?
Go and check me out on LinkedIn, and go and give me a follow. You'll be able to see me. I've got a nice big pink and black banner, which says That Social Nerd on me. Not difficult to find. And just slide into my DMs and we can have a chat.
No worries. Well, we'll put all the links in with the episode. But look, thanks for coming. I've really, really enjoyed having that discussion with you. It went off into lots of areas, as I hoped it would. And excited to see what happens next in terms of your evolving journey on LinkedIn, because it's been great to watch so far. And all the best. Hope 2022 goes well, mate. Genuinely.
Cheers, dude. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Career Jump podcast with Andrew MacAskill. For more resources and information, just head over to the Career Jump website at www.execcareerjump.com to supercharge your job search and start making moves. Let's get to work.